Jai Jagannath. Welcome to the meeting. And if you have any question, we can discuss.
Okay. So I was just reading your purpose and explanation, and I remember sometime, I think in seventh chapter or somewhere, you mentioned that if somebody thinks of devatas as different from him, he is like an animal to the
Yeah,
devatas,
actually,
something of that sort. It is in,
this was quoted,
I think, from
especially.
Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Actually, I remember I sent an article to the blog of Hindu Human Rights,
Hmm.
and they posted it, and it was quite, people appreciated that. Let me see, Hindu Human, oops, I can find, yeah, but anyway,
Yeah, so my question is like
yeah,
this part, because like, can you elaborate on that? And
yeah,
other than this, we also say that devtas are like, representation of different like natural phenomenon, like maybe rain, water,
yes,
fire
right,
and all.
right,
So
yeah,
those we see as physical objects and something different. Like, we can see that as fire is different from me and that way. So, and do
yeah.
devatas reside in our human body, is in the gross body, or
Yes,
they are just,
definitely. I made a video about the cosmic body, but I think it was in Italian. Anyway, there is the title of the article, if you want to go and see, is Devas
okay.
are not demigods, so get over it.
Yeah, I think I read it
I
first
think you
time, and
read it.
through that only I got in connection with you.
Yeah, and that is a hinduhumanrights.info
Okay.
blog website. Uh, yes, so there are several, because it's quite a long article. It is mentioned, the verse you were mentioning is stated as in Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 1 4 10. It says that one who worships the devas by considering them different does not have the proper knowledge and is like an animal to the devas. Pashu. Now, in the article I am highlighting the point. What is the meaning of different? Different means that people have, what to say, non-evolved people, non-realized people, or we could say materially conditioned people, have a limited material mentality that is based on duality. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, you just go and check how many times Krishna is saying that we should overcome duality. Okay. Now, unfortunately, this understanding this point requires some effort, some exercise of intelligence, and not many people have the habit to do that. So, especially when we identify with the gross material body, the gross material body has obvious limitations based on time, space, and individuality. We think I am whatever, you fill up the identification, the ahankar, mamatva, whatever, and that means I'm not you. That means I'm not God. That means that I am separate from the other existences, I'm separate from God, etc. This was not the idea of ancient cultures. because ancient cultures didn't identify with the material body that much. The concept of material body identification started actually with the Abrahamic cultures, because in the Abrahamic original story of creation, Yahweh is creating the human being from mud, and is breathing the soul into the body, the human being. So there is this confusing idea that when we die, we give up the soul. You know, we return the soul to God. This is funny, because if we return the soul to God, what are we? You know, what is left after the soul returns to God? It's just a body made of mud, which disgregates, it becomes mud again. But then, if someone is logically asking, then who is going to heaven or to hell? The soul? No, because the soul is always going to God, which is neither heaven nor hell. And, you know, there is also this idea of the resurrection, by which the human being that is the body will be reshaped somehow by Yahweh, and Yahweh will give it back its soul. And this is so, you know, so nonsensical, because it doesn't mean anything. Because people don't know what a soul is. If we abandon the possibility that we are the soul and have a body, and we accept the idea that we are a body and have a soul, everything goes very confused. Now, we know from Vedic knowledge that we are the soul. So we are Atman. But Atman is also Brahman, because Brahman is everything, it's the entire existence. Our existence cannot be separated from the existence of everything else. This is what the particle physics is teaching us. You know, they've discovered that the physicists, you know, that are studying the particle physics are actually starting to understand this point, that Atman is Brahman. Of course, the Atman is not the totality of Brahman. It will never be the totality of Brahman. But there is no separation possible. The separation is illusion. So, illusion means Mahamaya or Yogamaya. Mahamaya is the feeling of separation, the idea of separation that takes us away from the consciousness of God. Yogamaya is a feeling of separation that attracts us to the consciousness of God, because we think about God more intensely, because we want to feel that we are connected. You know, we are already connected, but you know, if we don't feel it, either we want to avoid feeling it, and that's conditioned life, Mahamaya, illusion, material illusion, or we want to feel this separation in such a way that we bring the connection more closely, more intensely. You know, and it is Yogamaya, that is bhakti. So we find also in ordinary material relationships, when you have a relationship with a person, when that person is absent physically, you can have either, you know, a loss of interest for that person, so you just completely forget about that person, or you miss that person so much that your feelings, your attachment to that person becomes even greater. Are you following this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's come to the point of the Devas. We have many explanations and teachings from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Bhagavata Purana, from the Upanishads, from the, all the Shastras are teaching us that the universe itself is a form of God. The Virat Purusha, the universal form, the Vishwarupa, is a form of God. Right? So, the Purusha Sukta is describing, the human society is a form of God. This tangible universe is a form of God. And we go on, we find it in the Puranas, Upanishads, everywhere. So, in this Viratrupa, the Devas are limbs of the body of the Virat Purusha. So we see sometimes all these iconographic representations, even of the human body, with all the Devas images in various parts of the body, right? You've seen that. We've seen, I will find it out, maybe I can put it as a thumbnail for the video. But, the point is that everything that exists is part of God. Okay? And the Devas are more prominent parts of God because their level of consciousness is greater, is higher, is more powerful. They are practically manifestations of God, manifestations of the Brahman, but as limbs, parts of the body of the Brahman. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that the worship that is directed to the different devas actually is going to Vishnu, but it is offered without the proper understanding, because people think they're worshipping different devas. Are you following that?
Yes.
So the actual offense, is not to consider the devas to be equal to Vishnu. That is stupid. That is a very bad translation of the Padma Purana. It's a very Abrahamic translation. The real offense is to consider the devas as separate from Vishnu. And this, to understand this, we need to develop a more transcendental, less materially identifying vision of God, what to speak of ourselves. So, when we say that the devas are parts of the body of God, we can make exactly the same comparison to the parts of our body. So, when our hand signs a contract, we cannot say, I didn't sign the contract, the hand did it. So I'm not liable to, respect and follow and fulfill the requirements of the contract. That's stupid. The hand is part of you. You cannot say, because I prefer to worship the hand, then I will disrespect the leg. That's stupid. But this is something only Abrahamic can do, because they're stupid. Because they think that there is one God who is the real God, and other gods that are bad gods, and that they should be destroyed. How can you destroy gods? It's not possible. And then we have, people who, carry Hindu names and even Brahmin names. They ask questions for us, such as, in a fight between Voldemort and Vishnu, who will win? Like, oh, that's depressing. Because they think that Vishnu, another one was asking me, what do the followers of Rama and Krishna think about Vishnu? Well, depending on how stupid they are. Because if they're stupid, they will think that Rama and Krishna are different from Vishnu. If they're stupid and ignorant, they will think that they're different. But what is the meaning of followers? What is the meaning of Vishnu? We have to go from the ABC onwards. The point is that the mainstream culture is oriented towards, quick fix solutions. They are oriented towards infotainment. They want to be entertainment by trivia, by very, irrelevant information. So they started with a quiz, tradition, and they went this Kobanegar Career Party, stuff like that. It went also to India, because superficially that is cultivating knowledge, encouraging knowledge, but in fact it's only cultivating and encouraging superficiality. So all these books of general knowledge, they're extremely superficial. And the definitions you get from them can be extremely misleading. Because they're copy and paste and, nobody really understands what they're talking about. So, when we discuss about the Devas, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, if someone wants to worship the Devas, any particular Deva, God himself is encouraging that. Because by focusing on one particular aspect of God, we can obtain those specific qualities more quickly, more easily. Because, it said, if you want to get health, you meditate on Surya. By meditating on Surya, who is simply another aspect of God, because you hear names like Surya Narayan, Rabbi Narayan, they are the two main guys there in Orissa, where, they presented the big scholars. Surya is just an aspect of Vishnu. But the point is, if you meditate and focus on Surya, you're actually meditating on those particular qualities of God, like the power, the radiation, the health, the energy, the purification, the light, the cleansing. That is bringing health. Are you following this?
Yes.
Good. So if you just meditate on Vishnu in general, you have to meditate on the qualities of Vishnu, which, as we are told by the Bhakti Shastra and Acharyas, the qualities are not different from the personality of God. The names are not different, the qualities are not different. But when you think about Vishnu, what you are focusing on, it's more difficult. Because everything is there in Vishnu, or otherwise, people project their idea of what Vishnu is supposed to be, or what Krishna is supposed to be. In their mind, Krishna is just, a young coward boy, with the peacock feather, okay, which is good. But any young coward boy can wear a peacock feather and go around playing the flute. That doesn't mean it's Krishna. If we don't understand the qualities of Krishna, if we don't understand the real nature of Krishna, Janma karma chame divyam, evam yovetti tattvataha. if they don't understand what is the real nature of Krishna, then we are just worshipping our projection of what we think Krishna is, or Vishnu is, or whatever. That is why it is called Prakrita Sahajya. Prakrita means materialistic, and Sahajya means simpleton. A Sahajya person is a simpleton, a superficial, sentimentalistic person who has not actually realized much, doesn't know much. So this is, we have it in Gita, at the end of Gita, Krishna is saying, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nasuchati Nakanchati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Means only after attaining the Brahmana realization you can actually approach the real bhakti, spiritual bhakti. Otherwise, if you reject the idea of Brahman realization as, Kaivalyam Narakayate, this, is hellish, we don't want the realization of Brahman. We don't want the realization of Atman. We don't want the realization of Paramatma. We just want the realization of Bhagavan because that's the most intimate, the most direct. But if we don't have the realization of Atman, Brahman and Paramatma, we will just project an idea of Bhagavan that is our fantasy. This is why Rupa Goswami is saying, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vilindina. Aikantika Harer Bhaktir Utpatayava Kalpate. If without the knowledge that is in all the Smriti, all the Shruti, all the Puranas, not just your one book, that's a Bible syndrome, So we have to actually study all the Shastra, Shruti and Smriti, and we have to understand that Vishnu is not a separate God with a small g. So, if we understand that all the Devas are actually parts of Vishnu and are not separate from Vishnu, and we know that we are also not separate from Vishnu because the Atman is always one with the Brahman. There cannot be any separation. If the Brahman is omnipresent, how can there be any separation? Where are you going? Is there any place that God is not there? Can you go somewhere when Vishnu is not there? It's not possible. Vishnu is the Param Brahman. Vishnu is everywhere. So, if we think that the Devas are separate, if we think that we are separate, then we don't have a real realization, and we just have a bodily consciousness of life, which is, the same like all the animals have. The Pashu is someone who has not developed a higher level of realization and consciousness. This doesn't mean that the animals are bad. Of course not. The animals are also jivas, are also atmas. But they are, logistically unable to perceive that consciousness. So animals have, at most, they have the pranamaya consciousness. They feel alive. They have some rudimental form of manamaya because they think, they remember, they have feelings, they have, they can become crazy. They can get alienated, they can become crazy. Not because of some organic tissue damaged, but because of bad conditions of life. So we can see the animals in some factory farms are actually crazy. You can see them. They don't react normally. Yet you go and check their brain, it's okay. It's just the same as anybody else. Just the human beings. You cannot tell a brain of a crazy person from the brain of a healthy person, because they have exactly the same shape and color and form and everything. Mental problems are not usually seen in the hardware. They're due to the software. It's like the computer. The brain is like the hardware. Brain and nervous system are like the hardware. If you have a software problem, the hardware doesn't show it. It's a software problem. You cannot, change the screen and the software virus will go away. It's not going to work like that. It's a software problem. You have to solve the problem on the software level. The problem is that because of this stupid influence that we are the body, present current mainstream medicine is treating people like bodies. So they give, psychotic medication to people who actually need to fix the software. So they try to modify the hardware so the software will be working okay, but you see, they're only making more damage. So this is the situation. So the Devas see that the human beings who keep a separate identification, a separate identification, like non-evolved as human beings. The basic evidence of the level of human being evolution is to be able to understand that we are not the body. If people cannot understand that, then their position of human beings is very evident. Are you following this?
Yes.
Does this answer your question?
Yes. So first part I can understand now. Regarding the other question, that does Devta reside in our body, as in the gross body, or like how?
Sorry, I didn't hear it properly.
Okay.
The other question was?
Yeah. So other question was like some was on mute. Jai Jagannath, am I audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I thought that your connection had failed. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So what? Yeah, I was asking. Yeah. So does Devtas reside in the gross body as well? Like we say that our gross body is made up of earth, wire, like five elements.
Again. The gross body is just the outer layer of our, how do you say, self. The Annamaya Kosha is the gross body. That is, made of food. Okay? The gross body is formed with the food we eat. So, but this is just an external shell of our other four bodies. The Annamaya Kosha is the external one, then we have the Pranamaya Kosha, which is the body of prana, which is subtle. Then we have the Manomaya Kosha, which is the mental body, which is in turn, it has different layers, conscious and subconscious and everything. Then we have the Jnana or Vijnana Maya Kosha, which is the body of knowledge, where we can become conscious of what we call the Turiya, the fourth stage of consciousness, that is not external consciousness, but is a very internal consciousness. And then the fifth sheath, or kosha, as the Upanishads say, is the Anandamaya kosha, which is the Atman. Now, the Atman has no dimensions. We can, give some, reference to the dimension, but the Atman doesn't have material dimension because it's not material. So the Atman is actually conscious of all these bodies, including the gross body. Okay, so the presence of the Devas, the Devas also have all these bodies. So the Atman of the Devas, most of the Devas are also Jivatma. But what is a Jivatma? If the consciousness is raised to the level of being a representative of Vishnu, a limb of the body of Vishnu. And Krishna is telling Arjuna, Nimitta Matra Sachi, is become an instrument. A devotee is not abandoning the particular individuality, because there is no need for that, because each cell of our body is still an individual, but it doesn't have a separated, limited, individual identification, because the cell of our body is acting as the body. So the Devas are acting as the body of God, of Vishnu. In the same way, they are present at all these levels in our body. The Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and the Anandamaya Kosha. Also, the Devas have all these manifestations, and they also relate to our manifestation. For example, the Annamaya Kosha of the Devas are present in our Annamaya Kosha as the 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and akash. That is a material manifestation of the Devas, and that is a material manifestation of our Annamaya Kosha. Are you following this?
Yes.
Okay. Then if we go and study the creation of the universe, we see that all the Shastras are giving us the process by which the universe is created. And each element is created by the object of the senses, and each object of the senses is created by the sense that corresponds to it, and so on and so forth. So, the Brahman starts as a sound. The sound creates the sense of hearing. The sense of hearing produces the objects of the hearing. Because without the sense of hearing, the objects of the sense of hearing are meaningless. And the object of the sense of hearing produce actually the organ that is taking its purpose of existence from the object of the senses of hearing. You are following this?
Yes.
Okay. So we are talking about the sense of hearing. But for example, the other time Arunji was bringing up the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and talking about the subtle and the gross aspects of Brahman. And one of the main points that verse was bringing up is the sun. The sun is the eye of God. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's not that, Vishnu is one, bloke going around with an eye that has the shape of a sun, No, that's not the point. The point is that the sun is light. The sun is the origin of light, which is the object of the senses. And the object of the senses of light is creating the eye, is giving meaning to the existence of the eye. The eye of God is the reason, the origin, and the background and the basis for the existence of our eye. So our physical body is the material manifestation of the spiritual body of Vishnu. So each part of the body of Vishnu corresponds to a particular Deva, because the Devas are the limbs of God. So Surya is the eye of God because it's a light. It enables the light, the vision, and the objects of the senses and the sense of eyesight. And that is also in our body. So Surya is in our eye. Because if Surya was not in our eye, not the whole Surya, but the principle of Surya. If Surya, the principle of Surya was not in our eye, we wouldn't be able to see anything. Are you following this?
Yes.
I understand.
Maybe I need to hear it once more. So I suppose I need to slowly try to hear, because it's
that's
slightly
why
complex.
we are recording it. Because I understand it's difficult. Because usually, as I said before, people, they're just toying, playing with very superficial notions. They think that, if you are a Vaishnava, you have to be against the worship of the Devas. What stupid idea is that? That's definitely not the idea that we find in Shastra. But why? That's another thing. Because to understand why, you have to be able to see and understand and perceive beyond the limitations of the material body. Because when you say that the Devas are in our body, people get confused. People get confused. But it is there in iconography. It is there. The cosmic body. The yogi meditating on the presence of God in his body. You heard about the nyasa. You know what nyasa means?
No, I haven't heard.
Karanyasa, anganyasa. You heard about that?
No.
Okay, Karanyasa, Anganyasa is a tantric procedure. Now, Tantra, Bhakti, and Yoga are one thing. We shouldn't, just buy the cheap and superficial idea that Tantra, Yoga, and Bhakti are three different things, because they're not. Because in yoga, you need you need to engage in mantra seva. In bhakti, you need to engage in mantra seva. And mantras are found in Tantra only. So, whenever you think of mantra, that is from Tantra. mantra, yantra, tantra. You know, tantra, many people have weird ideas about what tantra means. Because, again, they identify with the gross body and they make a mess out of it. But we need to go to the origin, because all the upasana, all the puja, are, even the bhakti puja, very simple bhakti puja, are tantric in nature. Now, if you have a look at my book, Puri the Home of Lord Jagannath, you see I am giving a little bit of description about the internal puja and the external puja. You know, the Bahir Yagya and Antar Yagya and Bahir Yagya. Because these are both required. If you just do the external worship, you know, and then the devils will see, oh, you think you're the body. You think that only external thing, you know, you think that we are not inside you. You are not connected with us. So your worship is just external. Okay, then, you know, you're not on the proper level of understanding. So, okay, you know, yeah, thanks, but, you know, you cannot really develop a relationship with the devas if you think that you are a separate entity and they're a separate entity. You know, that level of understanding is like you know, going to the king to beg for some, you know, benefit. You know, and that is what the animals do. Animals, you know, a stray dog will come to you begging for food. That's what the animals do. That is why they're called pashu. There's nothing wrong, you know, but you cannot have the same kind of understanding and communication and cooperation, you know, with someone who is on a totally different level of understanding. So, you know, if people think that, you know, you have to worship different gods, this is foolish. In fact, in the Karma Kanda procedures, you have not only Purusha Shukta, which is, you know, clearly describing the form of God as a Vishvarupa, you know, with all the devas. But also, there is this Vishwadeva, the offering to all the devas together. You know, because it's, you know, you cannot avoid making a ahuti offering to Vishnu and to the Vishwadeva and to Vishnu during the Karma Kanda procedure, even if the yagya is supposed to be to some specific deity, such as, you know, Indra or, you know, Surya or whatever. You have to also give ahuti to Vishwadeva and Vishnu, because otherwise it's not going to work. Devas are not going to take you seriously. You understand this?
Yes.
So, you know, when we talk about sectarian Vaishnavas, it's an oxymoron. It's like talking about dry dampness. You cannot have dry dampness, or you cannot have cold heat. You know, you cannot be, because Vishnu is everything that exists. So how can you be a sectarian? It means you don't understand who Vishnu is. You are just worshipping your mental projection that you dress up with, you know, with whatever you think Vishnu is supposed to look like. And then you say, oh, that is Vishnu. But that's not a fact. That's just a projection of the mind. That's not Vishnu. Because Vishnu is definitely not sectarian. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes.
you want to elaborate even more?
No, I think that is sufficient.
Okay, so
That is clear understanding.
so I think that we can stop here, and we'll remind anyone who's interested about that article about the devas who are not demigods.
Yeah, I will share.
Yeah, because actually, calling them demigods, I myself was, I was conditioned to use that definition, but then I realized that it's, a very bad definition. Someone who doesn't actually know English, doesn't know, the history and culture can call the devas as demigods. Because a demigod is Arjuna is a demigod. A demigod is the child of a sexual union between a god with a small g and a mortal human being. So Arjuna is a demigod because he was born from Indra and Kunti. So he was a demigod. Indra is not a demigod. Okay, I think that today we had enough. Thank you for participating, and
Thank you for your explanation. Probably you can post this once you have it, posted on YouTube. I want to go through it once again.
I will.